Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. So in this video I'd like to give you guys an update on my rice plant, my Two Moso Bamboo plants, and I'll also be introducing you to a new bamboo plant that I'll be planting in my garden soon. So I'll start off with my rice plant, which is just coming towards the end of its life. So this is the rice plant. You probably notice it hasn't grown a huge amount since the last video. That's because it's at the final life stage where it's finished tillering, so it's finished getting bulkier. It's also finished putting on the height, and it's now just putting on lots of basically grain for the rice to form. So it's coming to the flowering period now, and what it's going to do is set the seed, and then it's going to die. Rice is an annual. Once it finishes setting its seeds, it just dies back, and that's it finished. So I'll give you guys a close-up on some of the ears that are starting to form. So this is one of the ears that have formed, and this is basically where all the seeds are formed on the rice, and that's what we eat. So the one at the top looks like it might already be ripe. It's already gone brown. The rest is still fattening up. What the plant does in this stage of growth is the seeds get pollinated, it then fattens up the seeds, and it puts all its energy that it's got left into those seeds, and then the whole plant will die. Once the seeds are dry and firm, they're ready for harvesting. And so I suspect this plant will only last another month or so, and the whole plant will go brown. I don't know if I'm going to get pollination or not. I've not actually noticed any anthers or any kind of pollen producing parts of the plant appear, so I'm not sure if it's not happened yet or what's happened. But certainly this one at the top seems to be quite firm, and it looks like it might have pollinated, but it's kind of hard to tell. I'll just have to see what happens in a few months' time. But because this will probably die in about a month, this will probably be the last update. It's sent up, basically the main tillers that first came up, they've already flowered, and then the side tillers that have come up later, or the side shoots, they're just starting to produce their own tillers now. So basically every single shoot on this plant is now going into flowering. All the energy will go into those seeds, and then the whole plant will die. So you can see it's already starting to go a bit brown. Some of the old leaves are starting to die off as it puts the energy back into the seed production. So it'll be interesting to see how it does. I don't know if I'll get any rice grains. I probably won't eat them. I'm not sure what I'll do with the rice grains. I might try eating some if there's enough to make a small bowl of rice. But that's basically it for the update on the rice. It's coming to the end of its life now, but I'm quite happy with how it's done. This was grown over winter in Scotland, mostly under grow lights, because there's not enough heat or light levels in Scotland to grow over winter time, so I had to grow under grow lights. And for the last month, with the better light conditions, I've had it in my conservatory, and it seems to have been happy enough there. So it'll be interesting to see. This will be my first ever rice I've ever grown. It was just from a packet of rice, and one of the grains happened to have not been shelled, and I thought I'd just try growing it to see what would happen. And I never really expected to get a whole rice plant to grow. So just an interesting experiment, and who knows, maybe I'll try growing one of these small bits of rice, see if it is pollinated, and see if it grows into anything. So I'd also like to give you guys an update on my Moso Bamboo plants. Both of them have been growing quite well. The one on the right is suffering quite a bit, and I'll go into why that is in a minute. Both of them have grown a lot more since the last video. They've put up lots of new shoots, and a lot of those shoots are a lot thicker and stronger. Also, we're getting the first side shoots and some of the culms as well. So generally the growth's been quite good. They're still under grow lamps, but I'm probably going to change to natural light soon, because summer's just around the corner and the light levels will be pretty good in my conservatory. So I'll start off with the biggest one. This is the one that was that has always been the largest. I think mostly because this was a few weeks ahead in germination time to the other plant. That's why it's a larger plant. So in the last video this was sending out lots of new shoots. These have now fully formed, the largest of which was this one, and it's even got a couple of side shoots coming up there. I can show you at the base as well how thick those stems became. These are some of the thickest ones, which are these two here. The one in the middle though, it appears to be the largest. It's kind of hard to tell because it's about the same size as this one at the front, but it certainly got taller and has more branches on it. So it's nice to see it thickening up. It doesn't just look like grass like it did originally, these really thin bits. And in fact we actually have quite a thick shoot just appeared recently. That's nice to see. So it's still sizing up. I really need to get this to a decent size. The problem with Moso Bamboo is if you're not in a tropical location, it tends to stay quite small in the juvenile stage, and you don't get those giant culms forming. So that'll be the biggest challenge for me. And that's part of the reason this plant is looking so unwell. I was trying to see if I could force it into a more mature stage. Because these plants, what they do is they generally put a floss of culms up once a year in the springtime. Once those new stems have appeared, new bamboo canes, it sits there all summer just growing leaves, not sending up any new shoots. Over winter it doesn't send up any new shoots as well, and then in spring it sends up all the new culms. So it's really a very seasonal thing. These have been growing new culms constantly, so there's a high number of shoots, but they're all quite small. So I was trying to reduce the number of shoots by making this think it was summer, so I gave this really strong, intense grow lights, and I also gave it very high temperatures. And what that has done is it's burnt a lot of the leaves, so the leaves aren't looking too good. And there was also an iron deficiency which has appeared. A lot of the new leaves were completely white. I've actually cut off the worst ones because they all got burnt by the grow lamps. Without any pigment in the leaves, they just got destroyed by the grow lights. And some of these you can see that were quite pale have also got injured. Now the newest leaves coming through are starting to get slightly darker green again. They're still a bit pale, so I might need to give it a bit more iron again. I don't want to give it too much iron because it will become a very acidic soil mix if I give it too much. But certainly it's starting to get a bit greener again. So I'll probably leave it another couple of weeks, see what the new leaves are like. If they're still coming through pale, I'll give it a bit more iron. Hopefully that'll make it recover. And that's why it's not looking too good. Basically I've been overcooking it with the heat and the light, just trying to force it to not grow, because I know at high temperatures over summer, naturally where it comes from, it won't grow new shoots. And it seems like it kind of has worked. It didn't grow any new shoots for a month or two, whereas this plant, which has been under lower light levels and lower temperatures, has been sending up lots of new shoots. This one didn't send up any for a while. And then the new one it has sent up is quite a large shoot, and there's only one that's come up so far. There might be some later. When these tend to shoot, they tend to send up one and then several more appear just after, so we'll see. But it seems to have worked, the extra high temperature, to discourage it from sending up new shoots. But I don't think it's worth the risk of damaging the plant so much. So I'm probably going to ease back on the grow lamps and the temperatures. I'll probably just grow this in my conservatory around 30 degrees Celsius instead of having it in that grow box where it was constantly above 20 degrees and up to 40 or 50 degrees on very warm days. So this other Moso Bamboo is looking a lot better. This one though is sending up loads of side shoots. There's actually about 6 new shoots coming up now. So it really seems to be doing quite well. The shoots are bigger than the last one, so it's still sizing up, but what I really don't want is all these little ones. What I want is 1 or 2 bigger shoots. That does tend to be the problem with Moso Bamboo. If you're growing it from a seedling, it gets stuck in this juvenile stage where it sends up lots of little shoots. It doesn't get the thick culms. So we'll see how it does. At least I'll have a nice clump of bamboo by the end of the summer. Depending how big these bamboos get over summer, I might plant them out in the garden. But I'm trying to hold back and trying to get them to a decent size before I do that, because these aren't the most hardy of bamboos, and especially when they're young, they're not going to be that hardy. I need to get them to a decent size so when they go out into the cold Scottish climate, they'll be better at coping at it. If they're just a tiny plant, they could easily die off with a bit of frost. So I'm trying to get these as big as possible before I plant them out. If they're not too big, they'll stay in my conservatory for another winter. And if they are too big, I'll just have to plant them outside and hope for the best and hope that the winter doesn't kill them. They are quite frost hardy once they're mature, but at this stage, being quite young plants, I don't really want to risk it. So going forward with these bamboos, I suspect they should put on a lot of growth over summer. They'll be growing in my conservatory, very good light conditions and high temperatures on sunny days, so I'm expecting rapid growth. These plants, they tend to be exponential with their growth. The more leaves they grow, the more energy they can collect and the more growth they can put on. They'll probably need repotting again in another month or two, I imagine, and I'll probably give you guys another update on these bamboos towards the end of summer, and we'll see how much they've grown, and they'll probably be in 5-litre pots by then. So the new bamboo I'd like to introduce you to is this one here. This is the yellow groove bamboo. The Latin name is a little bit of a mouthful. It's a Phyllostachys, so it's one of the timber bamboos, so it does grow quite large. It's a Phyllostachys aureosulcata, and this particular variety of aureosulcata is the spectabilis variety. So the spectabilis bit is basically, it's just a variety of this species where the cane is yellow with a green stripe up it. But generally the aureosulcata bamboo, or the yellow groove bamboo, it grows to about 15 meters in height, so it is quite a large timber type bamboo. Not as big as most of the timber bamboos, but certainly when it comes to hardiness, if you're wanting a quite hardy bamboo that will grow to a decent size in cooler conditions, this is quite a good one to go for. It's nowhere near as big as some of the vivax bamboos. It's nowhere near as big as the Moso bamboo that I'm growing, but when it comes to colder climates, this one should grow quite well, unlike the Moso bamboo, which will struggle in my climate. This should get to a decent size. I'm expecting 6 to 8 meters maximum in my climate, but if you live in a climate where the summers are a bit hotter than here in Scotland where it's quite cold, 15 meters is about the height you can expect for this bamboo. So this will be growing at the back of my garden. Because it is a smaller bamboo than the Moso, I'm going to be using it more like a screen. The canopy will be a bit lower down, the culms will be narrower, and it will give a nice backdrop to the garden. The Moso Bamboo isn't really good as a screen because it grows so tall eventually. Then the culms are quite thick, the lower section is quite bare. It does give a good screen, but it's much higher up. So in my garden, the Moso Bamboo won't be doing a screening job. But this one will be. It'll be at the back of my garden. It should grow quite well there. It's also a very ornamental, nice showy bamboo, because it has a nice culms. Now I'll show you a close up, but it's hard to show because this is quite a young plant. It hasn't really got that nice appearance to the culms yet. So although this is quite a young plant, it's just starting to show that characteristic appearance that spectabilis has. So it's generally yellow, and you can see further down there, that's the kind of bright yellow it should be. It will actually be even brighter than that when it gets more mature. And then you get this kind of green stripe on one of the sections. So you can see there, it's kind of reddish. But when you've got healthier shoots and healthier culms, they shouldn't have that kind of reddish colour. It'll just be bright yellow with a nice green stripe. Also, this is known as groove bamboo because it does have a small groove on one of the sides of the stems. And I'll show you some of the root system now and why I expect this to size up so quickly. As you can see from the pot it's currently in, it's quite small. The roots are exposed, so I'm definitely going to be planting this up into a larger pot. I'll probably do that later today because this is definitely pot bound. But I'm quite surprised for such a small culm on this plant. The new culms look like they're going to be much larger, which is a great sign. It shows that this plant is going to size up quite quickly. I don't have to worry about it being small for long at all. So you can see there I've already got a new culm starting to appear. This culm already looks like it's going to be quite a bit bigger than the existing one, and I expect this will grow probably about 6 foot in height hopefully, which is quite a decent height increase because this plant is only about 2 foot tall at the moment. But because I've had a look at the roots and I've seen how big the runners are in this, I'm expecting it really to grow quite fast, quite quick. So I'll show you the roots now and you'll see why I'm expecting this to really take off this year. When I first got this through the post, it had such a small cane, as you can see there, it's very thin, and it was such a small amount of plant. I was thinking it's going to take a while to size up, and then as soon as I took it out of the pot and I saw how big the runners are, and then this shoot appeared not long after that, I realised this is actually going to probably size up quite fast in my garden. You can see, despite having such a small stem at the top, there's plenty of roots underneath, and there's some really quite large runners. I should be able to turn it around and show you some of these really thick ones. So you can see here, got these nice runners coming up. So I've got one shoot coming up at the moment at the surface, around about there, but I think actually I might get a second or a third one coming up, which would be quite a lot. A plant this small, I'd be surprised if it could sustain 2 or 3 large new shoots. But certainly this one looks like it's starting. We've got that one already growing up there. And there is actually another runner coming up along here. It's kind of hard to show. It's just around about there in the pot. You can see a bit of red there. So there's a chance that 2 or 3 of these new shoots could come up this spring. So I think this bamboo will do really quite well in my garden. It's already sizing up well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a larger pot and I'm going to get it to a decent size and probably inside the greenhouse to begin with. The reason being, it's a running type bamboo, and if I'm not careful it could spread, easily invade the rest of my garden or the neighbour's garden. So what I need to do is put in a bamboo barrier. That bamboo barrier will also be important for the Moso bamboo. I really need to get that installed before I plant these because I want to make sure the bamboos are controlled and just kept in a small area of the garden. But because the bamboo barrier is quite expensive and it's a lot of work to dig it into the ground, I'm not going to be ready to do that until autumn time. So that's why this is going to be in a pot. I'm just going to keep it well watered, and depending on the weather and depending on the amount of space I have, I'll have it in the greenhouse to begin with to give it that extra heat to try and get the growth a little bit more rapid. Although it is a hardy bamboo and it can take down to -15, so it shouldn't be any problem in my climate in winter. In summer it does like a bit of a warmer climate compared to what I have, almost verging on subtropical, so it likes temperatures around 25-30 degrees in the summertime. I'm only going to have about 18 degrees, so the growth will be a lot slower than what it's used to. Which is why I want to try and give it a boost by having it in the greenhouse. And then later in the year, I'll plant it into the ground. Even with the cooler summers we have here, it should still grow up quite well. I won't be getting that massive 15 metres of height, but I should be able to get to about 6 or 8 metres in height if I keep it really well fed. And it's going to be in a sunny, sheltered position, so it'll be getting the best conditions that I can give it. So that's all for this update. I'll give you guys an update probably at the end of summer, as I say. The Moso bamboo should hopefully be a lot bigger. This one should be a huge amount bigger. See how big those culms get. See if it's just that one that's going to come up or if it's going to be multiple. When the culms first come up, this should be a pinkish colour, and then this should fade to a really nice bright yellow with that green stripe.